morning, 5th grade. We are ready for language lesson 160. In our lesson today, we are going to go over how to find direct objects, indirect objects, predicate nominatives, predicate adjectives in a sentence. Our complements, we're going to go over how to find them. First of all, we're going to do a little bit of review on some other things. So we're going to go over our punctuation and capitalization rules. It's been a little bit since we've done this, but if you want to, you can turn back to page 312 and 313 in your book and follow along. But also, as I'm asking the questions, try to not look at the book unless you really need to. So if you can answer it without your book, great. If you can't, you can refer to your book. Page 312 and 313 is where these rules are listed. So I'm just going to go through the rules and leave something out about them and see if you can answer the question. Let's get started. So first of all, our rules for commas. Use commas to separate how many items in a series? 3 or more. And remember, the items can be words or groups of words. Use commas to separate how many adjectives that come before a noun? 2 or more. Use a comma before the conjunctions. What are the conjunctions? Can you list them? And, but, or, nor, for, and yet. Okay, so the rest of this rule is use the comma before these conjunctions when they join parts of a compound sentence. Use commas to separate items in dates and what's the other thing that goes with that? Addresses, right? Now, you need to be careful when you're doing this to make sure you do this correctly. Remember, your comma goes after, if you have the month and the date, like February 22nd, put the comma after the date, and then you put the year there. And in your address, you need to be careful that you put your comma between the city and the state. Use a comma after the salutation of a friendly letter and after the what of any letter. The closing of any letter. Use commas after well, yes, no, and why. At what part of the sentence? Like, where do they come in the sentence that you need to use a comma after them? The beginning of the sentence, okay? What about words of direct address? How do we punctuate them? If you're talking specifically to someone, you put a comma after their name, right? Yes. Okay, apostrophes. First of all, what is a contraction? A contraction is when you have two words combined and you're using an apostrophe you put the apostrophe where the letters were left out. So that is one place you use an apostrophe. If you have a contraction, wherever there's missing letters, apostrophe goes there. Now, what about if you're forming the plurals of letters? If you're saying A's or D's or something, how do you punctuate that? You put an apostrophe there, right? Like D apostrophe S if you're talking about more than one D. Okay? And if you have something that is possessive, how do you punctuate that? Apostrophe, right? The mother's baby, you put an apostrophe before the S. Oh, right, hyphens. When do we use a hyphen? Remember a hyphen is it's like a little slash. So when do we use that? To divide a word at the end of a line. Okay? What about semicolons? How do we use that? Semicolons. Okay, how do we punctuate with semicolons? When do we need them? We use them when they are separating parts of a compound sentence if they don't have their conjunction. They don't have and, but, or, nor, for, yet. Okay? What about underlining? Underline the titles of. Can you list some of the things that need to be underlined? See how many you can list. There are, goodness, about 11 of them. Okay, so we have books, newspapers, magazines, names of ships, trains, planes, plays, films, sculptures, paintings, and other works of art. And remember, we talked about planes of art. That was kind of our made-up word for like specific satellites and spaceships and things like that. Quotation marks. Use quotation marks before and after the exact words someone says. Also, use quotation marks. What about when we're talking about titles? What titles need quotation marks? We have about 8 of them, 8 different kinds of titles. Can you just start listing some of them that need quotation marks? Okay, so we have short stories, poems, songs, chapters, articles, and other parts of books, magazines, and newspapers. And what about the colon? When do we use that? We use a colon between the hour and the minute when we write the time. We use it after the salutation of a business letter. And we use it between the chapter and the verse when we're writing a scripture reference. Okay? Now, let's get to capitalization rules. So we have capitalize. I'm just going to go over some of these. So capitalize the first word of a sentence. Capitalize the first word of a direct quotation, whether or not it starts the sentence. Capitalize the word I. Capitalize proper nouns when you're naming something specific. Capitalize proper adjectives, capitalize titles, all the important words, and the first and last words, and capitalize nouns referring to the Bible and nouns and pronouns referring to God. Okay, let's go over our linking verbs. First of all, our state of being verbs can be linking verbs. So what are those? Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been. And then what are the sometimes linking verbs? Taste, feel, smell, sound, look, appear, become, seem, grow, remain, and stay. On page 279, let's go over them again. Page 279. Taste, feel, smell, sound, look, appear, become, seem, grow, remain, and stay. Okay, so take it step by step. In your lesson today, page 285, we are talking about how to find complements. So let's just go through these 5 steps. First of all, underline the verb twice. Next, ask who or what before the verb to find the subject, and then underline the subject once. Then say the subject and verb together and ask who or what to see if there is a complement. Then see if the verb is action or linking, because if it's action, your complement will be a direct object and indirect object. Sometimes both, sometimes just a direct object. And if it's a linking verb, your complement will be a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. Then after you've found your complements, read your subject and verb and complements together and see if they make sense. And if they do make sense, that means you probably found the correct word. Let's just go over how to diagram here a little bit yet. So we have a direct object here. Let's just go ahead and make clear what these are. So direct object, and this is a predicate nominative. I'm not taking time to mark all the words, or to ask what they all are, but we're just going to diagram them quickly here. So we have verb, subject, indirect object, and adjective. Okay, and then we have verb, subject, and adjective. Now let's go ahead and diagram the first sentence here. We have she gave, so we remember how to diagram subject and verb. That should be fairly simple. So we have gave to the right of the dividing line and she to the left. Now remember, direct objects are diagrammed on the same line with your verb. She gave a pencil. And you go ahead and just put a straight dividing line between your verb and the direct object. Indirect objects are diagrammed underneath your verb, and you're just going to put it on the line here, the horizontal line. This slanted line is just left blank. Now, for her name is Carol, to diagram predicate nominatives, go ahead and start with your subject and verb. Our verb is actually not name. Her name. And then Carol is our predicate nominative. Predicate nominatives and predicate adjectives get diagrammed on the line with the verb as well. But remember, our line here that's dividing them from the verb is slanted back to the subject because they are renaming or describing the subject, okay? So read through the green part in your lesson today where it goes over the steps of finding complements. And then work think, it says to following the steps, see if you can find the correct words as your teacher reads the steps. Obviously, I'm not going to read them for you. So just read them yourself and find your different kinds of words in your sentence and mark them. So read pages 285 and 286 and work think. Work your lesson carefully. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.